Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another of these brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic figures, another of the Raptor series, and it is another of the 1/18th scale figures. This time we are checking out the Dromaeosaurus albertensis, and this one looks really cool, and what's good about this one is I actually have the larger 1/6 scale version in my collection, so I'll be able to actually bring that in and compare it with this one, but this was probably one of my favorites as far as the original Raptor series run. It was one of the ones that I, pretty much grabbed as soon as I started to kind of take notice to the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures. When they were originally coming out, I had only ordered a few just because I wasn't too sure if it was something I wanted to collect or not. And I was into dinosaur collecting, but it wasn't like it is now where I grab pretty much everything I can. But it was again one of the species, and just the overall appearance of the figure were so interesting to me, so I grabbed it. So it's really cool to now have the smaller version here now, the 1/18th scale version, to add to my collection. And just like with the others, you can see we have that same, very collector-friendly packaging. Beautiful image of the Dromaeosaurus up here, and of course the Beast of the Mesozoic logo up there. And then here on the back, you can see basically a checklist of the other figures that are in this line or this wave. I don't know if he'll be making more of these in the future, but you can see that we have reviewed quite a few of them already with both of the Protoceratops as well as the Velociraptor. We now are on the Dromaeosaurus, which only leaves us with two more left to review as far as these 1/18th scale figures after this. And you can also see again the card here that you could cut out if you choose to, but I'm definitely going to be keeping mine here in the packaging like this. So let's go ahead, pop this out of the box, and check it out. So our figure is loose from its packaging, but you can also see that again we have the stand, and then there's the little area that you can, connect the figure to kind of give it like the jumping pose and stuff. And then you also have these two little clips here that you can use to just clip to the feet. And I'm not going to pop them all out currently. We'll do that, of course, in a little bit, but I wanted to show you that we have all of those accessories in here. And you, of course, also have the Beasts of the Mesozoic base here, again with the really nice logo right there on it. And then on top of that, you've got the extra legs. And we also have our Dromaeosaurus itself, of course, who is the star of the show here. Not really the best angle or anything to look at it right here, but we're going to go ahead and jump to a closer look here in just a moment at the figure and take a look at it. But honestly, it looks really, really nice. And again, I'm so impressed with how good the sculpts are, but also the paint jobs of these figures, considering you can see how small that is. Look at that. It just fits right there within my hand. It's definitely one of the smallest articulated figures that I have in my collection, and definitely the smallest, most articulated figure. But again, it looks beautiful. Looks like the articulation is working really smoothly so far, and definitely looks like a great paint job for something so small. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our beautiful looking Dromaeosaurus, you can see that it sports some really nice texturing there in the face as far as the skin goes. But of course, as you lead back further into the head, you start to pick up some beautiful feathers. And they've done a really good job of highlighting the feathers in a very, very nice way with some beautiful dry brushing. You can see they've dry brushed some lighter tones over it. The majority of the figure has kind of like darkish tones to it, but they find ways to really highlight the feather detail and stuff. And they've also done that with the face here as far as the skin texture. You can see kind of like a dark brownish tone there at the tip of the snout, but it transitions back very nicely, very smoothly to kind of a light tone like a white. And you can also see even some slight variations of almost like tans included in there. Same style of coloration here for the lower jaw as well. And you can also see we have an orange eye given a black pupil. Looks to be placed pretty much perfectly. Same deal over here. Very, very nice looking. And you can also see the nostrils. The nostrils as well have been highlighted with a darker tone. And everything honestly looks super, super nice here on the face of the figure. Very nice looking sculpt, of course, and paint job for something so small. Honestly, super impressive considering how small it is. And then, of course, being a Beast of the Mesozoic figure, we've got articulation galore. So you can see the inside of the mouth has a really nice dark purple tone. And the teeth as well are painted really, really nicely, really carefully. It's a little hard to get into the mouth of something so small to see that, but look at how nice the paintwork there is of the teeth, and everything on the inside of the mouth as well sports that really nice glossy look, that nice gloss coat, so that it shines very, very realistically. And of course that jaw articulates with perfection. And then as you start to lead down into the neck region, again, you can start to see the feathers picking up. They get quite a bit scruffier here on the back of the neck, similar to what we saw on the recent Velociraptor we had reviewed. And then as you run down the course of the neck, you start to see some alternate variations of like browns and stuff picking up, which looks really neat. You can also see a lighter tone of color here in the throat region. If I actually turn this a little bit, kind of line that up, but you can see some alternate lighter tones of color there in the throat region. You can also see it looks like there's like a dark wash that's been applied as well, which is definitely nice to see. And again, some nice variations of dry brushing have been applied to the feathered areas to really highlight those areas quite nicely. As you lead down here into the arms of our Dromaeosaurus, you can see again some beautiful dark tones, like basically like a really dark gray or a black, and then we have some nice dry brushing actually with that same variation of brown that we see up there. So again, we highlight the feather detail quite nicely there on the arms, and look at how beautiful the actual feathers look. Again, for how small this is, the detailing is through the roof. That looks super impressive if you ask me. As you lead down, of course, you do have more articulation, and sometimes it's a little stiff, but actually seems to be working pretty smoothly. You've got quite a few articulated joints, but if we push that arm out of the way, you can see what it looks like here on the underside of the arm for our Dromaeosaurus. You can see some nice light tones, kind of like some off-whites here for the underside, as well as, again, some more brownish dry brushing here on the underside of the feathers leading off of the arms, which definitely looks nice and also adds a nice little bit of color variation here to the underside. You can see an alternate tone of brown actually here in the stomach region, if I can get the arms out of the way, and the legs. You can again see some alternate tones of brown here in the stomach region that have been applied very nicely. And you can also see as we lead back up here into the side some more beautiful, much finer feather detail right there. Again, you can see how it gets kind of scruffier here in the shoulder area leading up into the spine. But you can see here on the side you have some nice fine feathering, and it looks really good. And you can even see again more variation of color as we have different variations of browns in that area as well. And then as we lead back here into the thigh region, you can again see some varying tones of color, some more nice dry brushing before it transitions as we lead down the leg into that kind of off-white, more like a light gray almost. And you can see that we have some brown stripes as we lead down the course of the leg that basically run the entire course of the leg down into the foot, before we transition back again to primarily that light tone. You can see the nails are painted very nicely. You've got that beautiful sickle claw up, and with the bend in the leg here, you can see how that, claw is basically ready to go, ready to attack whatever it is approaching. And again, everything looks really nice. You've got dew claws, all very nicely painted, very precisely painted, and my camera's losing focus here, but you can also see that we have that gloss coat there on the nails as well. And then as you lead back up here into the tail, of course the tail is very outstretched, and you can again see that we return to that lighter tone of color. It looks like we actually have variation of color though, even in the lighter tones. It looks like there's maybe like a light gray wash that's been applied. It might be a little hard to pick up on camera, but here in hand it absolutely shines. But as you lead back out here into the tail and you lead out into that beautiful plumage here at the end of the tail, you can see that we have a really nice mixture of browns and blacks, and it really highlights that detail very nicely. And I like that they allow the lighter tone of color to kind of creep through some of the feathers in almost like a wash-like fashion, which adds another element of the paintwork. And you can see the underside has a different tone of brown, a little bit of a lighter tone, and that primarily is also at the end of the tail feathers as well. Of course, you're not really going to see too much difference over here compared to what we just saw on the initial side, because being an articulated figure like that, you're really going to see pretty much the same thing. Basically, just take a look at it to see that it looks the same over here as it did on the other side, to make sure that the paintwork is very precise and consistent, and that is definitely what I see here on this gorgeous looking Dromaeosaurus. So that is really, really nice. Again, if you skipped out on the larger version, I would definitely recommend picking up this smaller version, because I would pretty much say it's just as nice as the larger version, and of course is a much easier figure to fit into your collection if you have a filled collection like I do. Although that never matters to me, because no matter how big my collection seems to get, I always buy more figures and find places to put them. But here you could see that we have the more outstretched legs as well, again, that look really nice, beautifully painted. All of the claws and everything are perfectly painted. No sloppiness on these legs, and pretty much I don't think I've ever seen sloppiness on any of my Beasts of the Mesozoic figures in general. And then as far as the articulation goes, again, you've got the articulated jaw, which we already had taken a look at. And then as you lead down the neck, you can see we've got articulation here, here, and here. So 3 spots, which allows for some really nice posability for your Dromaeosaurus. You know, you can look up, down, all over the place. Definitely a lot of really, really smooth, very nice articulation. Then as you lead back here into the shoulder, you've got a joint there, as well as in the elbow, and down here in the wrist. So you've got 3 areas of articulation right there in the arms. You've got the midsection articulation, which can go up, down, left, right, all over the place. You've also got the hip. Well, it's not moving too well because the knee articulated, but you've got the hip region right there. And then you also have the knee articulation right here, which is actually working really smoothly. And then you've got the tail articulation. You've got like a swivel right here, so you can kind of articulate that wherever you would like. And again, that's a lot of articulation for something this small. That is just tons of articulation, and I feel like the figure itself is just so gorgeous with that articulation. It just amps up the appeal factor quite drastically. Definitely another fantastic 1/18th scale release. And then just like with the Velociraptor, something I really wanted to point out to you guys is the fact that this figure as well can stand perfectly free of the base, free of any type of a stand. It can stand completely independently without the arms touching, the tail's not touching, nothing. It's standing perfectly on its own, and that really impresses me about these figures. Again, they're so small. They've got really tiny feet and everything, you know, proportionate sized feet. And just like with the previous few figures, if you would like to exchange the legs, again, you just pull that leg off. And if I can find the correct leg, it's this one. Yes, okay, I did get the correct one. So you would then just take this, there's a little hole right there, and you basically just slide that in, and then that leg is in, and now we have one outstretched leg, one, you know, bent leg, which can allow like this type of a pose where the raptor is kind of jumping and about to take something down, you know, very, very cool. Different poses you can create for your different figures. Absolutely awesome that they, you know, include the alternate legs to just give you more display options. As far as a size goes for the Dromaeosaurus, for a length, you're looking at right around 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And then for a height, currently in the position it's in, of course you could change this by just changing the positioning of the figure, but it's, I'd say about 1.25 inches, maybe, and then closing in on about 3 centimeters. And then, of course, you can position your Dromaeosaurus like up in a leaping position or however you would like, which would, of course, change the height of the figure. But for a size comparison, we've got our usual suspects with Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our Dromaeosaurus here. And you can definitely see, again, just like with the Velociraptor and Protoceratops figures, it's very, very small, much smaller than your average Beasts of the Mesozoic figure. But for the comparisons, I think, you know, that would really be interesting. There is our 1/6 scale Dromaeosaurus next to our 1/18th scale Dromaeosaurus, and you can really see a huge size difference between these two. Both are gorgeous figures, again, pretty much looking the same as far as the sculpt and coloration. Of course, the paintwork might be a little better on the 1/6 scale version because you have more figure to, you know, deal with. You have more area that you can paint because it's a lot bigger than the smaller version here, but I feel like they absolutely did a fantastic job of kind of replicating the same paint scheme that we have in the larger version here on the smaller version, and pretty much looking just as beautiful, I would say. Then we've got a comparison here with the Dromaeosaurus next to the Velociraptor that we recently reviewed. And again, they look super cool here next to each other. It's really neat having different versions of these Raptor series figures in the same size range like this smaller 1/18th scale size range, and definitely neat to again see both the Velociraptor and Dromaeosaurus here next to each other. And then for one final comparison, we're not going to run through every figure out there, and since both of the Protoceratops figures are the same size, we just decided to bring in the Andrewsy version here next to our Dromaeosaurus and give you again one more size comparison overall. I don't feel like we need too many comparisons at this point, especially since we've been doing numerous comparisons with the previous last few. I feel like we should have a pretty good idea roughly, I would think, of what the size of these 1/18 scale figures are here currently, especially since you saw the Dromaeosaurus there is pretty much the same size as our previously reviewed Velociraptor. So this 1/18 scale Beasts of the Mesozoic, Dromaeosaurus is definitely another fantastic release from them, and I'm really happy to have this one. Again, like I stated, it was one of the initial Raptor series figures that really pulled me and really drew me in. I loved the sculpt, I loved the color scheme on that. It just looks so realistic, so lifelike, and 100% something that I could see this dinosaur being color-wise, and that was one of the reasons I think that it really pulled me and sucked me in and made me want that figure right away. And now having the smaller 1/18th scale version here is just, again, really cool to have both now in my collection. And it's just in general neat to have the figure that I was so drawn to the first time to now have a second time. And I think they did a great job here on the sculpt. Again, it looks pretty much just as beautiful, just as vibrant, and just as highly detailed as the larger 1/6 scale version did. And again, sports all the same detail, I would say, overall, just at a fraction of the size. And then the paintwork as well is just as beautiful. Of course, like I stated earlier, it might be a little bit more highly detailed on the larger version because you have more room to play with, more of the figure to paint. This is a lot harder to paint being so much smaller, but I feel like they honestly achieved the paint job quite nicely overall. It has all the same tones of color, has that same appearance of realism when it comes to the application of the paint. Nothing really looks like paint on the figure, in my opinion. It all pretty much looks like body color, and they've done a very good job of blending all of the colors and highlighting all of the detail with the paintwork, with beautiful areas of dry brushing and washes and stuff. So continuing to follow the same trend of gorgeous paintwork on this one as we have seen through pretty much every Beast of the Mesozoic figure yet. And then, of course, you have the option to change out the legs, as well as some fantastic articulation through the entire figure. All of it works very smoothly, very realistically, and I think as a whole, this is just another absolutely gorgeous release from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. So if you are interested in picking this up, David Silva sent this one over to me a little bit early rather than waiting for the figures to actually start shipping, which they will be doing very soon. So again, a huge thank you goes out to David for sending this over a little bit early for us to review here on the channel. But if you are interested in grabbing this or any of the other 1/18th scale figures that are currently out, again, these are still up for pre-order on the Beasts of the Mesozoic website. So if you're able to run over there right now, place a pre-order, you'll be able to get this right when they start shipping, and that's definitely the way to go because you don't want to miss out on these fantastic figures. So make sure you check the link in the description, head on over to the Beasts of the Mesozoic website, place that pre-order for this gorgeous Dromaeosaurus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.